Good morning, everyone. We're just going to give it 1 minute just to let everybody join and then we'll get started. Okay, so good morning, everybody. My name is Zoe McKay. I'm a lecturer in the School of Agriculture and Food Science in UCD, and I'm going to host this Zoom this morning for you. So just, I suppose, to start, I want to welcome you all to the Zoom. I hope that you were able to attend some of our spring grass walk series that were hosted by Dairy of Ireland, collaborating with Teagasc Grass10. And I hope you're able to make one of those in the last couple of weeks. They were really well attended. Some of the topics that were covered were around, I suppose, the benefits of grass to our dairy production systems, how grass grows and the way in which grass grows, measuring grass, and then we finished up kind of looking at developing a grass wedge and how we would get to that stage. So I think the logical follow-on next step to that, which is the focus of our Zoom today, is how we use Pasturebase Ireland, which is our national grassland management software that we have. And we're joined by Joseph Dunphy from Teagasc Grass10 to kind of facilitate this workshop for us. So the focus really is going to be on how to use Pasturebase, how to take those measurements that we took on our grass walks over the last couple of weeks and actually put them into the software, how we use the data that it gives us and how we use that to help make our grazing management decisions. We also will have time to look at some additional functions and features that Pasturebase offers us in terms of managing our grassland. But before I hand over to Joseph, I just wonder, would you please pop into the chat box a Y for yes or an N for no if you were able to attend one of the grass walk events, just so we have a good sense of what you have heard already before we kick off into Pasturebase. So maybe just in the chat box, yes, I attended one, or no, I didn't. Great. Perfect. Okay, that's perfect. So we've kind of a good mix there of those that were in attendance at the in-person events and those that weren't. So that's perfect. That's no problem. Once we know, we're able to tailor the conversation discussion today. And on that point, I really encourage that we make this interactive. We have the chat box there for question answer if you would like. You're more than welcome to put on your camera, to raise your hand, to ask a question over Zoom. You're more than welcome to do that. So I think at this point, I'm going to hand over to Joseph. He's going to share his screen and take us through some of the resources available and then Pasturebase that we have as well. And I'll be here in the background to make sure everything's going okay alongside my colleague, Deirdre. So we'll be able to make sure that things are progressing. So Joseph, I can see your screen. Thank you very much for your time over the last couple of weeks and for this morning as well. And at that point, I'll leave it over to you. Thank you.
Great, so thanks a million. And sure, look at good morning to everyone that's on the Zoom this morning. There's probably a few faces that I met. I suppose I did the two events in Roscommon and Meath, and then I know my colleague John Maher was with Chi down in some of the other ones. So I'm Joseph Dunphy. I'll be or like RT, I'm the Western correspondent for for Grass10, so I pretty much cover the Western seaboard from Donegal, probably down as far as Clare, and even over into North Tipperary and stuff like that at times too. So, again, I just want to, like, I suppose what Zoe said there in terms of this being interactive. Like, I know well sometimes maybe Pasturebase, they can be something you could be going quite well on it, and maybe something annoys you on it, or something just doesn't get maybe stops you dead in your tracks, and all of a sudden then it's kind of maybe forgotten about for a few weeks, or you get frustrated with it. And I suppose, look, that's what we're here for, and maybe that's what some of the resources are here for. We know well how important grass management is, and we hope to have got that across at some of the events where we're after doing witchy. And I suppose excuse me, Pasturebase is kind of the next step on that, and anything we can do to help you along the way, be it some of the resources that's there, or Q&A on today, or the weekly grass newsletter, maybe to help you make better grazing decisions. That's kind of pretty much what we're about in Grass10. All right. So I suppose just before we kick off with maybe looking at grass wedges and getting into the Pasturebase app and things like that, I just wanted to maybe bring you through some of the resources. So firstly, the Grass10 newsletter. Some of you will be aware of it. I see one or two people who are in WhatsApp groups with me there, and you'll get this newsletter every Tuesday. Okay, so it's essentially a newsletter where, as you can see there, we're on the 288th edition on yesterday's one. It's been running since 2018. So pretty much what comes in that weekly Grass10 newsletter is predicted grass growth rates for the week from the LODs and the team in Moorpark from their predicted grass growth model, which has been getting better and better over the last kind of 3 or 4 years. So there's a huge amount of work going into that in terms of maybe farms that are recording fertilizer, good soil fertility, and taking the meta data and all that in order to accurately predict grass growth for the next 7 days, which is a huge resource to have in I suppose in Irish agriculture, to help people to predict grass growth for the following week and to plan their grazing management. Some other stuff we'll have in there in terms of predicted rainfalls, the soil temperatures, all that coming across from it. Aaron, dry matters percentages. I know we talked a little bit about it in terms of when we're cutting and weighing, but normally we aim to have three or four up to date dry matter percentages from numerous locations. Now, normally we'll have a fourth, normally Grange will be in there. We'll have something from Ballyhaise there as well. So that all comes in. We've the figures for the previous 7 days from Pasturebase are in there from a dairy point of view and a dry stock point of view as well. So dry stock will include beef, sheep, contract rear, and all of that. And the dairy farm. So essentially the farm cover, the cover per livestock unit, growth and demand, pre-grazing yield, what the animals are going into, and the diet of what people are offering cows, and similar there in terms of maybe on the dry stock side of things, stock and rate, growth, demand, days ahead. And then the weekly checklist is there, kind of maybe 3 or 4 key things for the week for you to focus on, a featured farmer point of view, and then maybe some other things, maybe links to other things, links to the Dairy Edge podcast that I do as well. And so that's there. So if you go, so I just need to drop this bar here for a second. I can see the top. Here, so just the weekly newsletters here in on the Grass10 page in the Teagasc public website. If you just pretty much go to subscribe to the Grass10 e-newsletter, okay, and it's going to pop in. It'll be an email on a Tuesday evening. Now, the one thing I would ask is sometimes it can be a little bit clunky looking at it on the email. The handiest thing to do is either view it, click the link and view it on a browser, or also maybe if you're getting it through a WhatsApp, view it on that. It looks really, really well through a browser. Okay, so that kind of comes up like that. It's very much phone ready as opposed to email ready. Okay, so if you can view it through there. I suppose the other area I just wanted to bring you through is the webinar section on the Grass10 page. So pretty much we have done. COVID kind of brought along a lot of webinars. So there's a pile of stuff that's been kind of there since 2020, 2021, 2022. I wanted to just bring your attention to Pasturebase Week from 2023. So just over a year ago there in January 2023, we did a Pasturebase Week, and it literally started. It was 1 hour a day so it's 5 hours in total at lunchtime from 1 to 2. And it's pretty much started on the Monday with basics in terms of registering for Pasturebase, setting up paddocks, maybe mapping your farm, all that. So again, that was all covered in an hour. Tuesday was completing a grass walk and key terminology. Wednesday was, maybe using a projected planner, making decisions off your grass wedge. We're going to get into that, a little bit of that today anyways, but if you want more information on that, that's there. Thursday then, rotation planners, grass budget and soil sampling. So as you can see, it's getting a little bit more advanced as the week went on. And then Friday was, fertilizer, slurry recording, clover management, all that sort of thing. And, I suppose we'll call it the upper end of using the functionality of Pasturebase. So just to let you all, anyone that's on the call here know, all that information is there. There's a wealth of resources, a wealth of of webinars there and recordings there. Could be anything to do with, spring rotations, hitting grazing targets, building grass, all of that stuff there. The stuff there and taking grass control of beef and sheep farms. Oh, I know some of it might be a little bit out of date in terms of, it's a couple of years ago, but it's not out of date in terms of relevance. Okay, so if that can be of help to anyone, work away through that. Okay. So look at Zoe, I'll shoot straight over to the app. And again, don't be afraid to stop me at any time. No question is too daft or too basic or anything like that. I know this again, similar to some of the meetings we've had. Some people are at a good level with Pasturebase, some people are at a lower level with Pasturebase, and that's just the nature of most groups I deal with anyway. So we'll try and be as inclusive as possible, and kind of, it's no harm at times always maybe bring it back to the basics anyways, so
Yeah.
and since the last update, there's been a few more additions into the new Pasturebase app, so it might be no harm to go back to it. So I'm just going to share this.
So just to reiterate that, we do have plenty of time for questions, kind of make this interactive. So even if it's a small question, or if Joseph has gone something that doesn't make sense, or you've missed a step, we can easily go back to that. So just shout through the text box, and I'll keep an eye on that, and we'll go from there.
Yep, perfect. So just from a starting point of view anyways, okay, maybe some of you are using the desktop app or have been shown the desktop app, and maybe that's what you're comfortable on. So about 60% of our covers now a week are coming in through the app, okay? That used to be kind of the other way. It used to be 40% through the app, like even a year ago, it might have been 40%, but now 60% of people now are over to the Pasturebase app, okay? And if you search Pasturebase in your app store or on Google Play or your Google account, you won't get anything. It's what you need to search for is PBI Grass, okay? So to download the Pasturebase app, okay? So I have it out there at the top of the page there. So PBI app, okay? So again, you just log in with your login details that you have for the online version, okay? Now, the most important thing we do every time is with the synchronize button down at the bottom. Now, and you get push notifications now in the new update in terms of to upload the I suppose your most recent Pasturebase wedge, or if you're putting in fertilizer or whatever else along the line. But you see, the design of this app, it's an offline app, okay? It's designed for people who are maybe out in the middle, no coverage. So if you don't synchronize the app, it hasn't talked essentially to the server, okay? It hasn't talked to the cloud, okay? So it's designed that it works in offline mode. You can do all your recording, your wedges, you're putting in fertilizer, rotation planners, you can pretty much do all of that, but you must hit synchronize before you start to bring down maybe most recent information from it. So it could be maybe milk data or whatever else, for that all to come down. Or maybe if you've made edits to a previous week's wage, to bring that edit, you did that on the desktop, or you did that in the week in between your two your most recent grass walk. it's important to synchronize when you come into the app first time. So again, I'm just going to hit synchronize there at the bottom. It's going to upload. It's going to get any maybe other changes that I've made to stuff up on the Pasturebase desktop version, and then it says synchronization. So I know I'm up to date now. Okay, so you have a new load of things there on the front page there. The cover data, grazed or cut for silage. Okay, so putting in events. We have fertilizer, milk sales can come in there. So again, if you have the link created with your co-op, if you're milking, that can all come in there. Rotation planners, if you have a grass budget done, that all comes in on the app. Okay, so I suppose the idea of the app is it's live, it's in your hand. I suppose it's not really, you're not really putting it down on a piece of paper and then coming back in an evening after you finish at the farm to put a cover in. It's pretty much you're doing your cover, you're walking the farm, put it all in, make your changes to your wedge, review it. Maybe if it's changing stock numbers or whatever it may be, need to be done. Changing intakes, maybe you're dropping silage out of the diet, you're adjusting meal rates or whatever. That can be all done live there and then. You have your wedge done as you're walking the farm and it's finished. You don't have to go back to the desktop after that. Okay, so pretty much I'm going to click into cover data there at the top, and we're going to see a few different headings there. So it's grass cover, livestock, planner, grazing calculator, cover summary, and cover history. Okay, so what I'm going to focus on now is grass cover. So as you can see there, I have a cover on this. So this is a demo account. So you'll see in a minute, it's only 12 standard paddocks. Okay, so we won't get too into the growth rate is going to be thrown off in this. It's not going to be exactly right, but we'll discuss things around it. But this is just a demonstration account with 12 standard paddocks made up on it. Okay, so 22nd of the 4th was the last time I did a wedge. Okay, so we're the 1st of May today. It's a little bit over a week ago. So I'm going out this morning. I'm going to walk on my farm, and I'm going to start at paddock 1 there. So you can either call it, you can see some paddocks there. I have a paddock, number 1, and it's called top field. 2 is lower field, but I can have them on Pasturebase. I can have them as, say, 3, 4, and 5, just as numbered 3, 4, and 5. Or I could have them as 1 and the name of the field if you have all fields named. Okay, so you could do that either. All right. So
Joseph, maybe just a question there on that. If you're getting started from the get-go, do you need to get everything set up in terms of your paddocks and everything on the desktop before you move to the app, or can all that be done on the app?
No, we do that. That has to be done on the desktop. So we can just remind me, Zoe, at the end. We'll share the desktop. We'll share that, and we can just go through that quickly. So what I want to do then is I want to add cover, okay, in the top left-hand corner, and I'm going to add, and it's today's date. Okay, so I'm going to click into paddock 1, first paddock beside the parlor, or beside. Can I get rid of this? It's bad enough looking at myself once, let alone looking at myself twice. You know how to get rid of that icon there coming up, Zoe, would you? You know, the icon that...
No, I usually wouldn't share off the phone, but unless you can
Yeah.
just move it out to the side, will it let you go to the side with it? No?
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, it's gone. Don't need to see me either.
I don't have to look at myself, so good stuff. So I suppose the first paddock here is one that, we're talking about getting into good covers, and this has been a very difficult spring on farm. It's all logic or rhyme or reason has just kind of nearly gone out the window, where we kind of got a good spell there now for the last 10 days, and all of a sudden we're back into heavy rainfall again, and just we haven't had good growth rates. If we look at some of the pasture-based stuff again from the last week or 10 days, we're probably still 20% back in growth rate. We grew 44 kilos of grass on average from pasture-based, where for the last 7 days, whereas we from essentially from Tuesday to Tuesday there, we should be well into the 50s, the high 50s at this stage, so it's I kind of thought we'd be out of it by now, but it's still hard going on farm. The weather again, and I know there's heavy rainfall again for tomorrow, which is just a pain all the time, so. But if we see this paddock there now, so over on very first paddock, previous cover 1600, okay, so we'd be aiming for to not be going into 1600s, during what we should be out into mid-season at this stage. We're nicely into second rotation. Previous cover 1600, maybe that might have been baled, okay, so or this spring it's probably been grazed out, but with the way things are going at the minute, it's been grazed out. But the pre-graze the previous cover, and that was 1600. Now we'd like to be in 14 or 1500s this time of the year, so if we were getting into that immediately and it was still leafy, it might have been fairly okay. But for this example, I'm just going to put it in as if it was grazed out, and we'll take out another paddock later on. Okay, so say for instance, this paddock, I walked it this week now, and there's about 200 back on it. Okay, so it's kind of grazed a few days ago. When I put in 200 into that, okay, so when I click out of the box of 200, it's realizing, Pasturebase is realizing there, okay, something has happened here. There was 1600 on the last day. There's only 200. Okay, so 200. If we're saying 4 centimeters or 4 point something centimeters, is somewhere in around 50 of a cover. So to be grazed out, a good graze out, we're probably back to 5 centimeters back on that paddock again. All right, so it realizes there's been a graze date or some event has taken place, be it a grazing event or a silage event. So it has brought up a box underneath it to put in that information. So if I see there, the status is still in grass, it's in mob 1. The event was, I can change that to grazed or cut for silage. I leave it as grazed for now. And the event, because I did the last farm walk on the 22nd, it's realized that, since the 22nd, this paddock has been grazed. So I'm just going to put it in that was pretty much 2 days after it was grazed. And I know well then the pre-grazing yield on that paddock was, it had grown another little bit, it had grown to 1650. Okay. And the residual was to 4 centimeters. Okay. So, and then I just hit save and we go save and close for now. So when I come back to it, paddock 1 is gone down to the bottom. It's green. It has an event. It has, if you see the little calendar at the bottom, has a little tick in it. So it's happy. It's happy that I have recorded the graze date or an event date. Okay, that can be, when we talk about Grass10, and getting to 10 grazings per paddock. If I'm doing grass wedges and I'm not recording events, well, how does Pasturebase know how many times that paddock is grazed? So then how can it tot up, what we want is we want ideally, get 9 or 10 grazings out of paddocks. But if I'm not using Pasturebase correctly in terms of recording all the dates that those paddocks and the pre-grazing yields, then it can't give me a tonnage that the paddock has grown for the year. So that's the reason why we really want to get that information in, because you all know there's fields on your farm, and it comes back to, if we want to call it like, I suppose, a nutrient efficiency point of view, there's probably reseeded fields on your farm that you're getting 10 grazings off a year, you're growing 14 or 15 ton of grass in them, and they're getting, we'll call it the limit in terms of nitrogen, they're getting 225 kilos. But I guarantee you there's fields that maybe poor soil fertility, maybe older grasses in them, they're probably going about maybe 11 ton, but they're getting the same amount of fertilizer. So if we're able to see this on a yearly basis by recording, doing our 30, 40 records on Pasturebase, we have that information in a one-stop shop there in terms of how many grazings has the paddocks received, or I suppose how many times have they been grazed, what covers were grazed on them, and we have a lot of information then to go and say, right, that paddock needs a reseeding, or it needs soil fertility improvements, or what along the line. Okay, so we'll keep moving. Paddock 2, again, there was only 50 on it the last day, so again, I'm just going to put on that there was 450. Okay, so again, similar to what we were doing on the farm, we're doing our pre-grazing, we're doing, you wouldn't be cutting away in at 450. You might just kind of eyeball that it's this 450 back on it, or if you're using your grasshopper or plate meter or whatever, you'll be coming up with that. So if I hit the calculate button there, okay, so you see the calculate button, and there's a toggle there between cut and weigh and plate meter. So if I'm eyeballing, say, some of those lower ones and then cutting and weighing some of the higher ones, or if I'm plate metering the whole lot, if I'm on a mechanical plate meter, or the older style plate meters, I can enter the start figure, the end figure, and the number of drops that I have taken in the field. So I'll just put in now. I'm going to say that I was at 50,000 on it, and I finished at 50,200, and I did 20 drops. So it's giving me a height of 5 centimeters and a cover of 250. Okay, because it's essentially a centimeter, and so that's putting it in there. The residual of 4. And I'm going to just say there's 200. I like to use it, especially with tetraploid type grasses or dairying type grasses. If it's sheep, go with 250 kilos of dry matter per centimeter of grass. If it's grazing, go with 200. Okay, it's a good guide. Okay, so that kind of puts there that I have a cover of 200 on that paddock. Okay, so now if I just put that to 5,300. I'll just say 25 drops. You see, you can change the drops all the time. So if you're dropping at 25, your plate meter 25 times or 20 times or however. So, and then you can just hit use. And that brings the cover back into that one. Okay. So I hit save and close, which brought me back out. I can just keep clicking save and next. Okay. So we'll do this one on the calculation again. I go back to the cut and weigh. So as we talked about at some of the group meetings, we get the grams. Okay, so we'll call it 250 grams. Wait, sorry, that's a bit heavy. 200 at 15% dry matter. And instead of you having to go 200 by 0.15 by 40,000, it's doing it there for you in Pasturebase. Okay.
So, Joseph, the Pasturebase app will give you a dry matter percentage that was there, but you'd need to kind of have a look at the Grass10 newsletter, see what's more relevant for your area and change that.
Yeah. Yeah. So so you can change that. So like and it kind of goes to show there, if I change that to an 18, from a 15, there's a difference there, all right, like, and when we take into account some of the colder weather last week, dry matters absolutely, ratcheted up. Some of that heavy first rotation grass was nearly like wire. Cows were getting a lot of feeding in it. There was, dry matters were, I know some of the Oak Park stuff was at 22%. After I was at 18.5. Cows are getting good last out of grass, whereas, wet weather again over the last 2 days, dry matters have dropped back down. You can see it practically because cows aren't getting as long in paddocks, but I suppose the scientific thing behind it is, the dry matter percentages that we're talking about. So there again, there's a field there, just very, very quickly, 1100 to 1200 and save it next. Okay. So I'm just going to skip through some of these because, it's, some of these paddocks that you're going to be, some paddocks after grazing, like, as I said the last day, does it really matter if there's 450 or 500 on it? Don't be dwelling on these. Like, there's bigger decisions for you to make. The decisions you're going to make are, did I get the one that's at 1400 right, that's now gone to 1600? They're going to be the key decisions. Arguing whether a 450 is 500 or a 500 is a 550, it's not really important to the overall thing. It's about the process of doing this. Okay, so there we'll go. This 700 is on this one. That one had 800. We'll put 1,000 on it. Okay, this one, 2,000 kilos of grass. Okay, we'll call this one that this was a wet field, poor spring, big heavy cover on it, only dried out last week, and I just kind of felt that the best place for this was a bale. Okay, the cows weren't going to graze it outright. It was very, very tough, and I had plenty of grass coming back on my second rotation, so I decided to take this paddock out. So again, I put this maybe back to a cover of 100 or whatever's on it. Again, it thinks there has been an event. Some event has happened. So again, I'm going to change it from event to cut for silage. Okay. So the event date, I'm going to say it was second half of last week, someday there. So I'll say the 26th. So I can either put in that there was, say, 2,200 on it or 2,300 on it, or what I estimated was on it, or what I cut and weighed that was on it. Or I can just I can click bales there again. This is a very handy little function on Pasturebase. So say, for instance, now I just I'm going to pull a figure off the top of my head. I just don't know the size of the paddock there. But I'm going to say we took 30 bales off that paddock, and I'm cutting them in at 220 kilos of dry matter per bale. You can see there it was bringing 2640 back in there into that. Okay, so that's another tool on pastures. If you're pretty much you've taken you take out the bales, 24-hour wilt, and you have X bales on it, you can put that into Pasturebase, and it's all there. Okay, so save and next, 650, save and next. You can actually also here, I know, look at it's not really one for today. It's not really as important, but you see the clover level there, and this is this used to be only able to be done from the paddock section. But what we're trying to get people to do is we're trying to get people looking at clover and maybe seeing how it's changing or morphing on paddocks as you're moving through the year, because maybe after the spring or after having some farms, if soil fertility is good and there's clover there, the soil temperatures aren't actually brutal. They've actually been okay even throughout all the wet weather there throughout early April. So there is clover about on farms. And again, probably from the end of April, early May, it's probably when we're going to be just talking about reducing off. So what we can do there is we can kind of maybe record medium, low, medium, and high in terms of clover percentages, and it just kind of tweaks our mind in about it. It's mainly from a fertilizer point of view in terms of maybe reducing a little bit or going with soiled water on some of them. But just to show you it's there, you can change that clover level as you're going doing your weekly walks. So again, 750, we'll call it 1,000 on this one. I'll put 1,600 on this one just for the crack. This one is 650. So I'm going to put a big heavy cover on this one as well. All right. So I've come to paddock 12, save and close. Okay, so this is a new thing. This is a new function on the new app. Okay, the cover update appears to be complete. Do you want to run a synchronization to the web database? This is a kind of like a push notification that's coming through now, because what people were doing is they were doing their wedge, forgetting to synchronize it, and it wasn't coming up on the app. So it's literally telling you that because I've everything done, so I'm just going to hit no for now. What I should be looking at here is everything kind of green. I'm just going to maybe take out this event date in paddock 1 for a second, and I'll show you this here now. Okay. Can't go back and check it out. I can only change it. I don't want to go confusing the thing, but if if say paddock 1 there, that little calendar where the little tick is in beside where it says field, if I hadn't their event date recorded, that would be a red flag. Okay, and it wouldn't let me go to the wedge. Similarly, if I hadn't a paddock, if I had forgot to put a paddock in as I forgot to put a paddock in as forgot to put a cover in for a paddock, that wouldn't let me complete the wedge, because it's telling it's not your wedge is incomplete. You haven't completed the full thing. All right, so I have the wedge complete on the phone. It's asking me, do I want to upload it? But I don't want to upload it yet, because I want to make some changes to it. All right, so first thing I want to do, I have that in. I'm going to go back out of it for a second and I'll have a quick look at my livestock. Okay, what has changed since last week? Have I done anything different? Okay, so the livestock section is there. You can pretty much put in whatever you want into it. We can go add new. There's loads of livestock. We can put in different groups of spring autumn milkers, calves, say 1 to 2 year olds, which would be heifers. There's dry cows still hanging around and they're getting grass. We can do it ewe and lambs, stock bulls, horses, anything you want. We can put into it once we give them a grass intake. All right. I'm just going to keep it simple for now, and I'm just going to go with spring milkers. All right, and just leave it as one from a simplicity point of view. And so there was 90 last week. and I calved another two over the week. So I can change that. I had pulled the silage out of the diet and given them 16 of grass and 3 of meal. All right, and I'm offering them 19 kilos. Excuse me, 19 kilos of intake. So if you want to change that, you wanted to put that to 4, maybe bring the grass back to 15. Excuse me. You can do that, but I'll leave it at 16 and 3 for now. I suppose the reason we're kind of picking 19 kilos, maybe people ask me there, why are we doing that? I suppose the most recent run of the Moore Park work, for high EBI cows, kind of found that kind of in around peak intakes, they're kind of in somewhere in around with 20% heifers in it, you're probably peaking at in around 19.2. Okay. 19.3. Okay. It's often an argument that comes up, maybe some I have bigger cows or whatever, and the likelihood is, that figure could be over 20. But for most herds, if we use a figure of maybe 19 and a half kilos of intake, and I suppose not being tight on them, okay, that's a big thing, a big message that I have. Like, we have to, and it's been a difficult spring. It's been a difficult spring on farmers and also on animals. So, like, the thing we want to do at the minute is we kind of want to nearly, allow animals to stuff themselves as much as possible at the minute in terms of grass. Can we be a little bit more unrestricted, and maybe the 12-hour wires, can we maybe get rid of them? So this is kind of what I kind of want to get in, that, okay, we're offering them, I want to offer them 19, and it gets my demand right, offering them 19, but that doesn't mean that you kind of maybe doing your calculations to within an inch of that and kind of pinching them. We want to maybe get to a stage where we're into 24-hour allocations or 36-hour allocations now. If weather is dodge, it's, obviously we're not going to want to go messing grass, but, it's a good guide for when we get out into a bit of settled weather, that we get away from 12-hour wires. Because when we think of it, the animals that get pinched on a 12-hour wire are the heifers, okay? And we want them now. They've had a tough start. They're coming in there. Some of you'll be started breeding the last day or two. The rest will be, if not started, by the next 5 or 6 days, you'll be probably kicking off. Maybe heifers are on programs at the minute, whatever's going on. So we need to allow animals to drive on in terms of intake at the minute, to get them into a rising plane of nutrition. Okay, so that's kind of where the whole intake piece comes out of. So I'm after making a few changes there. It's going to keep asking me to upload it now. It's nearly a bit of a pain, but it's just it's just because people are forgetting about doing it, that it's there. Okay, so if you see there over on the right hand side, that's the growth rates of individual paddocks. That 28 figure, 39. So I was kind of throwing in a few figures there. So it was really only because it's a demonstration account. It's not it's not the end of the world. So I hit view edge, okay, and I turn my phone sideways, and it kind of gives me a picture of the wedge, there, and then what's happening. Okay, so again, the red line is kind of a demand line that is coming from the intakes, okay, that I have offered, and the stocking rate on the farm. Okay, so if I hit summary there for a second, I'm just going to kind of start this from the bottom up. Okay, so I've grazing area of, it's 30.93 hectares, as you can see there. So that's kind of what I'm offering, and we said 95 cows. Okay, so the farm cover there, 785 kilos of dry matter per hectare. Cover per livestock unit of 264. Now, we talked about that figure. I know of the people that I was with anyways, we talked about that cover per livestock unit figure, okay? And we kind of talked about a target of kind of maybe 180 to kind of 220, 230 at the minute, okay? Again, growth versus demand, okay, and why the demand line is important. And where the stocking rate is at the minute there, 2.97, okay, so just shy of 3 cows per hectare. And the total livestock units, what's there. So again, when it's 92, it's very simple when it's cows only, because if it's 92, you're counting them as an individual, they're one livestock unit. If you're adding heifers and calves into it, some people might have the calves on an out farm and heifers on an out farm. Some people might be bringing the heifers back now. So maybe if they're on a program now, they might be back at the main milking yard or whatever like that, or if whatever your contract rearing or whatever is going on. So it's they could be added in there. But they're giving me some of the KPIs there that I want to look at. Now, if I want to change, maybe if we see the management button in the middle, and we'll come back to the summary in a minute. It's important. This is one important thing, and it kind of can change now as we go through April, because most people are probably on a 60-day. We're on a 60-day rotation for the first rotation. So some of you might have this long stretched out wedge and a demand lined in that's kind of says there's an awful lot of grass on the farm, but it's not really. It's just you forgot to change the rotation length on Pasturebase. Okay, so it thinks you're on a big long round, and it says you've way too much grass. Whereas if you bring this back to, say, a 23-day round or a 21-day round now at the minute, you can, it changes that. Okay, so if I change that to 23 and a residual of 4, it's kind of doing a calculation in the background that I need to be offering, I need to be going into 1100s at the minute to keep that way. I tend to not focus on that. All right, I don't get into that. I kind of want us to be offering 1400 kilos of dry matter per hectare to stock if we can at all, because that's where we want to be from an optimal grazing point of view. Optimal grazing and optimal graze out. Okay, so if the red line is telling me I need at the minute, at the current stocking rate, the red line is telling me I need to be in 1100s just to pretty much satisfy demand. Okay.
Do you just ignore that, Joseph, or would you actually change that target under the management tab, or would you just leave it be?
You could change it and you could edit it to be at 1400 if you want. I suppose, but again, it's coming back to the summary. I kind of want to be offering, unless lower stocking rates will, if you had a low stock rate on your farm, it'll be telling you want to kind of go into 700 or 800s, like, and it's still not what we want to be, because that's then suboptimum altogether from a growth rate point of view, because we're nicking covers off way too low, so we're restricting. So you could edit that, and in management, like you can edit that, and you can just type there, you can bring that to, we'll even say 1350 for now, and hit save. So that's kind of brought the red line up a little bit. Okay, so excuse me. So that's a wedge that's looking kind of looks much better to you there now at the minute. But if we kind of go back to summary, and again, this is where it comes to when you do your weekly wedge and you're confident that you're doing all the measuring right. The couple of key things we talked about the last day: the farm cover, the cover per livestock unit, and the growth versus demand. Okay. When we say at the minute, growth is back. Growth is back at the minute. As I said, 20% back. It's 44. We should want it. We want it at the minute. Ideally we'd wanted it in the high 50s, because there is a higher stock rate. Maybe people have closed up ground for first cut silage on the home farm, and if we see like where that demand how we change that demand line is we up the stocking rate. Okay, so if we take that there, say for instance, I kick that figure of 48 there, okay? And I'm going to back out here and just do something quite quick. Say, for instance, I pull the meal all together. Back into cover data. And back into my wedge. So you see there how I'm after bringing my demand from 40 up to 57. Okay, so essentially what I'm after doing is I'm giving them no meal. I'm telling them, there you go, full-time grass, unrestricted, go hell for leather. Okay, I could be bringing the cow numbers up by another 10%. That could do the exact, that'll do the same thing. It'll bring the demand per hectare up on the farm. Okay, but it's to understand where that figure comes from. And essentially, like, if I'm offering 19 kilos of grass and I multiply it by the livestock units per hectare there of 2.97, I'm getting a figure on my calculator of 56.43, and the demand is 57. Okay, so that's what we're doing. It's the stocking rate essentially by how much grass I'm trying to get into down the throat of that animal. So so that's kind of what we're looking. So sorry, there's a question in there, Zoe. Is there on
Yeah, so just why are the target figures not on the app?
the target figures for which is it
James,
going to
just which
come?
of the figures are you referring to there? The cover per livestock unit. The
But
target figures aren't appearing on the app. They
so
should be.
they are on this app. If you can kind of see there, they are. So it's giving me a red line. It's giving me a red, a red bar there. When it's a 264, it's telling me that, on the 1st of May in a normal year, we should be cruising. We should be in cruise control, like, Okay, James said it's not on his one there. So have you
Is
maybe,
there
James,
an
just
update to be done or?
yeah, maybe update it. Just double check that you have updated. But as far as I'm aware, all even on the old app, they were given the old app. We call it the pre Christmas one. The cover per livestock unit figure was coming up on it. So it was giving you a target. And again, you see, it's
And if that's
just installed today.
so just installed today.
Yeah.
Okay.
I do, yeah. It's an interesting one. I don't know why that's not coming up. I suppose look at very, very simply, we kind of want to keep it between 160, 180 when we get out into 160 to 190, because if we call it old school brass tacks, we want to keep 10 days of grass ahead of the cows. And essentially, if I'm offering them if they're getting 2 to 3 kilos of meal in the parlour, and I'm giving them 16 kilos of grass in the field, 16 by 10 is 100 is 160 kilos of grass per cow. So if you think of it, break it down into that much. I want to keep, you see the days ahead figure there of 14. Old school, when grass growth is going well, I want 10 days ahead. So if you take 10 multiplied by 16, 160 kilos of grass per cow is what I want to keep on my wedge. All right. So that's why you see the target there of 140 to 200. Now I always say during April, I like a little bit more fat in the system. During April, I kind of want to be, we don't want to go under 550 during April because it'll stunt growth rates of an average farm cover. And then I don't want to really go under 180. I'd like to be keeping up into the 200s per livestock unit if I could, to keep that fat, to allow a week that if we don't get good grass growth, that I'm not automatically back down under 550. Because if we go under 500, if we're under 500, what that literally tells me is that I'm probably struggling in terms of pre-grazing yield, because half my wedge will be above it, half my wedge will be below it, and my pre-grazing yields will start to come down to 1200 and 1100. And there's not enough there's not enough. We want, as we talked about the 3-leaf stage, we want to get to 1500s that we're getting, we're spreading all our nitrogen or P and K, whatever we're doing. We want to get into good quality grass, but it has to be a certain level, or else we're going to go start running around the farm. Okay, so that's why we want to keep above 550. And again, 160 to 180 when we get into settled growing weather, but probably 200, 220 at the minute. Okay. I see Zoe just put in there about and I meant to mention it at the start. The girls in the Pasturebase support, the 046 number, the Mead number that's there on the website, are super. And I know someone mentioned it the last day, Zoe. I think was it at our one in Mead about, if they have an issue, they ring the girls in the help desk, and that's what they're there for. That's why the Pasturebase help desk, and it could be an issue with your app, or it could be as simple as a question on the wedge. And it's well worth knowing that's there. Like,
yeah, they're very, very helpful. I can get their help with student accounts and things like that for teaching, and they know the software inside out and upside down. So that number is just even useful even to have on your phone. Just if something's not working, it can be very helpful.
Yeah. So I'm just after backing out there as we was talking there out to cover data. So as you can see, it's telling me, it's flagging, it's giving me a red light there. I haven't uploaded my cover yet, so I better do it eventually. But I'm going to put that livestock back up again then into, I'm offering them 3 kilos of meal, 16 plus 3. So just coming back to making a grazing decision, okay, and why we doing all this on the app, okay, and where can we do it? So I've got back into my cover data. and I view my wedge. Okay, so there's not an immediate, when we talk about offering 1400, there's not an immediate, when we look at it like that, there's not an immediate surplus of grass on the farm when I'm targeting going into 1350 to 1400s. But when I look at the cover per livestock unit, there is. Okay. Now, the one other thing, and we mentioned it the last day, I think very important figure to have, is back to the growth and demand. Every 15 of a difference between growth and demand is either going to add 100 to my farm cover, average farm cover, or it's going to take 100 from my average farm cover. Okay. So essentially, if I'm growing 38 at the minute, okay, now, and again, this is a rough figure because it's a demonstration account, but for the example, if I have 10 multiplied by 7, it's going to, it's 70. It's going to take every 10 kilos a day in the difference, it's going to take 70 kilos off my, so that figure, farm cover of 785, if I only grow 38 for the next week, that farm cover will be down towards 70 odd. Okay. If we know that we're going to, predict to grow a little bit more, and my demand is at 48 there, and I'm predicting that I'm going to grow, in around 50 something for the next week, then I'm kind of confident there that, right, that figure, that 785 is going to roughly stay where it is at the demand I've currently set. Okay. So the cover per livestock unit, we call it, it's too strong on the farm at the minute. We'll get back to maybe making a decision on that bigger paddock there, that paddock that with the high cover of grass. So I go back to the wedge. With the paddock there, the very top one at the wedge at 1900. So back to the cover data. And we find that field that we had 1900, paddock 12 at the bottom. Okay. So I have a couple of different things I can do with this. I can either put it into silage cut later. So that can be, maybe I can put that in that it's going to be cut with the first cut. Maybe it's I'm going to leave it for a week or 10 days and cut it out when the weather gets more settled. Okay, so that's the best spot to put it for silage cut later, because it's not happening today. If I go to silage cut now, okay, it's going to put it back in at the bottom of my wedge. Okay, as in I've put the mower in it today. So I tell an awful lot of people, if you're not cutting it for it, literally, if you're doing a wedge today and the mower is going in this evening after the wedge, put it in and give it the event date today. All right, and cut for silage. In most situations, it mightn't be cut for a few days, even for your own records. I just leave it. I put it into silage cut later. It takes it out of the wedge. Okay. So if I go silage cut later, what you see in a second now is going to take it out of the wedge. So it's gone into yellow. Okay. Another thing we can do there as well, say another field, paddock 6 there's 100 on it, but I'm after spraying it off last week. So again, it's going to be gone out of the wedge. So on the status of it, there could be a field there for that's with calves that it's mapped, it's on your Pasturebase account, but it's not on the grazing rotation. I just do throw it into other enterprise, because there might be calves in it for 3 months of the year. It's a typical calf paddock. It might take a grazing off it later on in the year, but it just I just do leave it in other enterprise. And then the reseed function. So if I go save and close, reseed, it's a different box. Okay, so I've put that into a reseed. Okay, so now if I go back and look at my wedge again, looking a little bit better, and I'll go and look at the summary. It's brought down the cover per livestock unit. Okay, my farm cover has actually gone up because I've taken a lower cover, a bigger paddock, a lower cover out for reseeding. So if we think of the averages of the farm, my farm cover has gone up, but my cover per livestock unit has dropped a bit because I've taken a higher cover out of the wedge. So that's dropped back to 240. So if I was out in a few weeks' time and it was a 240, I'd be thinking we need to take 2 or 3, maybe 3 paddocks out of the wedge. All right, out into settled weather. Okay, so but on this example, I've just taken the 1 paddock out. I'm going to leave it another week. What can often happen is, if we just go back to the wedge again, sometimes you can see there's another paddock there at 1600. I could probably take that out at the minute as well if I wanted to. All right. Sometimes you can get a high cover per livestock unit, but if you look at your wedge, the wedge will be kind of fat in the middle, if you want to say. There could be a lot of covers at 11,000, 1100. So it could be bringing up your farm cover. But then you might say, well, I've no field to bale, because my pre-grazing's at 14 or 1500 where I want it to be, but it's kind of what you're doing in there is I'm anticipating that I will have surplus in a week or 10 days time. So it's, we take the cover per livestock figure, we take it as a guide, but you also have to maybe take a quick look at what's happening on the farm. Okay. Is there standout covers? Is there a 1600 of first rotation grass now? A wet field that hasn't been grazed, or an 1800 or 2000? Well, then maybe that's the one to come out. Is there a field that was grazed poorly? There's a bit of stem back in it. It's kind of coming up. Maybe I'm going to bale that in a week or 10 days time. Okay. So again, it's a mix of using your own decision making, but also what's kind of coming into Pasturebase. Okay. So I'm kind of
Just when you have
happy.
the wedge up there, Joseph, is
Yeah.
it important to mark on the wedge, what paddock is currently being grazed? Does Pasturebase need to know that information?
Not really, to be honest. I'm not a big fan of putting paddocks into being grazed at the minute. I kind of
Okay.
like if it's a two grazing paddock and I'm one grazing, I'm literally just going into it this evening or something like that, I just leave it in as green. If if I'm if I'm two grazings into it out of a third one, I'm going to be finished, say, tomorrow morning, I just do put it in as grazed out. I think it kind of, from a simplicity point of view, I don't get now if it's a massive paddock, that you're, say for instance it's 6 or 7 grazings or something like that, something mad, you could put it in as mid grazing if you say 3 grazings taken out of it. But like in most situations, I like to just keep it simple.
Yeah. Yeah. But you're still capturing that growth by putting it in as what, when the hover is and when it's being grazed through the dates in the calendar anyway. So you are capturing that.
Yes.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Perfect. Okay. Any other
So
questions, guys? Feel free to pop them into the chat or raise your hand. There's no problem.
so 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 again, look, at all I'm going to do now is, again, it's got sick of flashing at me to tell me to update the wedge because I'm doing so much playing around with it. But um, the one thing is, when you synchronize it now, you can't make any edits to it. Okay, so the edits have to be made on the desktop. So just to the key thing, so for you to realize, that's happening. Keep the do your changes, and then go up. So I'm happy enough. There, it's telling me again. Eventually, now this time I'm going to synchronize. So I'm happy enough. I've put in the few changes I put in terms of cow numbers. I've taken a paddock out for long-term silage. I'm going to bale it next week when weather is right, and I'm happy enough. Okay, so it's uploading, synchronizing the covers, and synchronizing successful. Okay, so that's gone up to the pasture wedge. I've made my decisions on the wedge, and anytime, during the week, I can kind of go in and check it. Like if I wanted to, it's not as if anything's disappeared off the app, but it's just I can't make edits. I can't click those paddocks now. They are as they are. All right. And if any changes in a couple of days' time, I kind of can make changes on the wedge. Maybe we get a week of high growth and you're taking out one paddock and you want to go back and maybe see how does it look with 2 paddocks taken out or 3 paddocks taken out of it. You just do that on the desktop route, on the desktop app version. Okay. So again, another
Through
handy
the app,
little.
Joseph, can you look at your predicted wedge? Is that only on the desktop? Just help make decisions.
Yeah, no, you can look at it on the desktop, and you can also look at it here on the app. So it's in Planner. So again, it's kind of telling me there, where. So there's 2.8 days. So if we look at that paddock there, the one at 1600 or 1200 or 1190, there's 2.8 days feed in them, 2.3 days feed in them for the current stock I've in, 1.9 days feed there, and the other ones. Say, for instance, I'm going to remove that one. I'm going to remove that one there that's at 1600. I can hit the X off it. Okay, it's removed from plan. So it's kind of going to bring forward the other ones onto. It's going to kind of bring up the other ones, and I can then click. So say for instance, I'm going to project growth at 55. after 6 days and project wedge. Okay.
Yeah, perfect.
And I can see the summary there, and it's telling me if I go 55, I'm going to have in around 756 is going to be, because I put my demand to 54, my demand is 54, my growth is 55, it's kind of going to be largely a static situation. Okay. So now, again, where the predicted wedge comes in, it's maybe in a few weeks when my demand is at 60 and I'm growing 80. And you're kind of going to say to yourself, right, I'm planning for this week. There's a field there that I'm definitely going to take out for bales, but there's a second field that's stemmy. The quality is poor. They made a bad graze out of it. It's not ready for baling yet, but maybe what I might do is I might try and focus, maybe work away without it this rotation. So you might throw that into long-term silage, see how the wedge is going to look, or see that if I project the wedge forward at 70, maybe I'm a little bit tight and I want to still take that paddock out. If I grow 70, how can I, does the wedge stand up essentially if I do that, or can I afford to take it out? Okay. So so that's where I suppose the planner comes in. The calculator is a handy one there too, because it's more for, I know it's more for the springtime, but it's just to make you aware of it. Like if I want to go, maybe it's one of the paddocks that had a high cover there, 12. So essentially, paddock 12, the cover was 1900. I'm going to graze it to 4. The area was 0.93, and I'm just going to call it 95 cows going to it. And I'm offering them 16, okay? Okay, so essentially what it's telling me there is there's 1.2 days feed in that, okay? Or I'm going to graze, if I'm offering them 16 kilos of grass, I'm going to graze 0.8 of a hectares per day, all right? Another handy little tool in that is that, say for instance, you're measuring out and you've got, reasonably rectangular paddocks for the springtime, all right? Or square paddocks or something like that. What I can do then is I can kind of put in, I'm going out with my reels, all right? I'm going setting up a wire. And as you're walking out to the paddock or on the quad, I can say, how many is going to grass today? Well, maybe it might be only 50 going to grass, and I'm offering them 8 or something like that. So I'm just going to do for springtime, there's 50 going out, and I'm offering them 8 for the day, and a 12-hour interval. Okay. So it tells me there's going to be 8 grazings in that paddock, and I need to offer them 0.1 of a hectare. All right. So that's, 0.3 or 0.4 of an acre. All right. So then I can put in that 50 meters is kind of the, we call it the width of the field or something like that. All right. Sorry, that should be 16. It should be 16 kilos of grass. If I'm offering 2, sorry, that was my mistake. If I'm offering, the daily grass intake should be 16, just say for there, for example. And then if I go the interval of 12 hours, that's going to offer half that. Okay, so say it. So going to tell me 0.21 of a hectare that I should be giving them. Okay. And if I say that the field is, the primary length is 95, or we'll call it 50, because that'll kind of merely be a square location, I can roughly step out 42 meters if I have the cover in right, and it's kind of giving me an allocation for those animals for the day. Okay, so again, you can tweak with that. It's one of these ones that it's just handy to have, especially maybe if numbers are changing and you're kind of thinking, obviously it's not going to be the be all and end all, but it's kind of like, we want to, at times we want to over allocate twice a week anyways, but it might just help you to get that allocation right. Maybe you're kind of thinking, how am I going to allocate this today now? How am I going to allocate this? That can be a guide. All right. It's definitely not a be all and end all, but it's a guide that's there on the app. Okay. So another one that's there on the app, okay, and I suppose it's something we're trying to get people to go to, is the fertilizer. All right. Fertilizer, as we know, we're being forced to pull back on farms, and some people have been growing an awful lot of grass for a lot of years, but it's been done with probably over the top in terms of the amount of nitrogen. Those farms are under pressure now in terms of coming back. And what I say to everyone is that, do you know exactly what you're putting out on paddocks? And I suppose the department can't see this, essentially, like, this is pretty much your own information. And I suppose the most important thing I say is be honest with yourself about what nitrogen and P and K is going out on platforms, and see where you're at. Because I guarantee, as we said already, there's probably fields that are very inefficient with the amount of nitrogen they're getting. because they're not growing the grass, and there's fields that probably are, okay, but there's probably paddocks that are getting probably over the top, and you just need to get to a stage where there's a year where you're recording everything that's going out on a paddock, okay? And it's not easy to do in terms of, you do need to keep on top of it. You need to maybe put it into a diary and then come back and put it into Pasturebase again. But Pasturebase kind of, it's reasonably simple. And again, there's nice tools in there when you build a bit of information in. Like if you have the soil fertility there, so there's some information there on the soil fertility that comes in. You know, we can kind of quickly look, and if you're maybe deciding you have a bit of 18612 left over or something, you know, which field we're going to go to, well, I can see there I'm going to go to paddock 2, the lower field, with it, rather than going to the field that's with it, you know, a P index of 4, okay, because it doesn't need it, like, you know, or we're just going to go there with maybe say nitrogen plus sulfur or something like that. So that's kind of where it is. But very simply, application list, I can add new, I can select the paddocks. So again, what's telling me there, the different colors are low, none, low, medium, and high levels of clover. Okay, so it's, again, it comes back to, can we make changes on the farm in terms of how much nitrogen is going out, is depending on the amount of clover. So it's more of a kind of a thing for remembering for yourself. So we'll just take the ones with no clover there for the crack. I'm going to select 4 of them. Done. They're done today. So I'm going to go protect urea 46, and amount units of N per acre. You can put it in whatever way you want, but say for instance, I'm a units man. I'm going to go with units of N per acre, and I'm following the cows with 23 units. Okay, that's 61 kilos per hectare of product, and I go save. So there we go. There, those ones are in. Those 4 paddocks are after being recorded. Okay, and it's giving me a kilos of N. It's recorded in kilos of N per hectare, but it's also an N. It's giving me kilos of nitrogen in N. So if you see NPKS, I put in 23 units. And again, if we want to go from units per acre to kilos per hectare, we're dividing by 0.8. So 23 divided by 0.8 is 28.75 kilos per hectare. Okay, so it's giving me it in a kilos. It's giving me it in a kilos per hectare format there when I'm doing it. And again, if you want to come back from kilos per hectare to units per acre, we multiply by 0.8. So again, I know we're talking about, you know, using the wedge from a grass point of view, but I think these two can kind of work in tandem with each other. And it's about, I don't think it's too late in the year. If you've a decent a log in a book of what the fertilizer and slurry have gone out on the farm so far, I think it's not, you can go back. It might take maybe 15 or 20 minutes to put it in on Pasturebase now, but I think you can put it in. So like, just say for simple, I can go back there, and you know, in February, for 1st of February, I covered cattle slurry. I only get cattle slurry dilute. So there's any fertilizer you can think of. You'll do well now to catch out Pasturebase at this stage. You know, there's everything from no, where am I gone? I'm gone too far. Cattle slurry, spring, and you have trail and shoe, splash plate, injection, the whole lot. Cattle slurry, spring, dribble bar, and I'm looking for dilute. Spring. Why can't I find dilute? Strong. I'm just going to leave it as is for a minute now. Okay. And I'm going to go amount per acre. Got 2,000 gallons. So all the different tabs there, you can put in what you want. And I select paddocks. And say, for instance, I did a third of the farm on the 1st of February. Okay, I got the first 4 or 5 paddocks were done. And hit done. Happy enough. Cattle slurry, that should be spring and should be dilute. Amount per acre, 2,000 gallons. Okay, I had 13 hectares selected and save. So all that has kind of been there in the background. And when I come out and I go to application report, and this is a very handy one there, as you can see, it's going to tell me there that I have 41 kilos of nitrogen put out on the farm. Okay, so again, that's largely from the slurry application we put out, but that total is there. We now, like, we have, you know, irrigation farms kind of are in around 225 as a limit now. plus like 225 chemical plus slurry. So I think people need to get into a situation where they're recording. Be honest with yourself. What are paddocks receiving on farm? What am I growing for that? You need to have a look at yourself, look at the farm then and say, well, I'm growing 14 ton. I'm doing fairly fine. You know, but there's paddocks there, they're getting probably too much fertilizer. There's probably paddocks there getting enough, or it could be the other way. There could be a field growing 10 ton and it's getting above the limit of nitrogen. So it allows you at the end of the year to have huge information there. This is all about building information for your farm. Okay. People who have been measuring on Pasturebase for 6 or 7 years, and especially if they're bringing soil fertility results into it, and they're recording the fertilizer and they're recording the reseeding, the information that they have to review at the end of a year is phenomenal. Okay, so and again, not to be overwhelmed or anything and say that you don't have that information, but what you have there, what you can start building by the time you get to the end of the first year, have your tonnage for that year. If you have your fertilizer for the year, you kind of know where you stand in terms of what has gone out on individual paddocks, and it's well worth going after. And again, as I said already, back out, synchronize, make sure to upload that fertilizer up to the wedge, or up to the desktop. Okay. So that's a whistle stop tour. Again, any questions for me there so far? We can go over to the desktop there for a couple of minutes. Is there any questions on the wedge, or using it, or using the app, or anything like that?
Nothing in the chat there at the moment, but if anyone has a question, please pop it in or ask. There's no problem either way. Just Joseph, when you mentioned obviously on the soil fertility and soil analysis results, they all go into the desktop, or is there a function in the app for that?
I like to put them in on the desktop, and what's going on there? For stopping share. Back share. Yeah, put it in, and you can actually bring them in. They can actually come straight in, Zoe, from soil from one, so from IAS or any of the Southern Scientific or any of the labs or Dairy Gold or whatever. They can literally come straight in. If you have the paddock number recorded and all that, that can automatically come in. They literally send over the file and it can come automatically into Pasturebase. So it's very much.
It's really useful to save time actually inputting that, because I suppose the biggest risk with the analysis is that the results arrive and they go into a drawer and I'll do it later, but it never happens. So at least if it can be transferred directly, so it's very clear when it is in, where the deficits are in terms of pH, P and K and things like that. So really useful.
100%. Yeah. So Zoe, I'm just going to log in here now for a second into my desktop.
Perfect. But only any questions, which is great. I mean, it was very clear, Joseph, what you went through. And I think it was, we're so focused on the last couple of weeks with the grass walks, actually just quantifying that grass. But then I suppose the most value to get from that is how it's used and how we ultimately manage that supply and demand on farm at the end of the day, as well as knowing how much we're growing and how much we're using in terms of input. So I think everything through the app makes that very user friendly, and the fact that it's an offline app, it can be on the phone, even if you're down the far end of the farm with no signal, makes it very user friendly. Because I think a lot of information that we're coming through in terms of research around helping farmers adapt grass management technologies on farm, it's the labor and the time that it takes, but having an app like that to make it more accessible is really, really useful. And I think it's very clear how it can be useful from what you've demonstrated. So any questions, guys, please shout them out. But I think it was quite clear from my perspective anyway.
Yeah. No, I'm just going to share. Yeah. So can you see that there, Zoe?
Yeah, I can. Yeah.
So again, just very, very quickly showing you the Pasturebase homepage there. There's nice little kind of up-to-date pieces of information on normally grass, or maybe some stuff from Teagasc Daily come in there on the right hand side. You have all the research farms there. Quite interesting too. You can pretty much view any of the research farms. You can view their wedge that week, see kind of what they're at, or where their growths are, where their demands at, what they're doing. And that includes, say, like, okay, you have Clonakilty and say curtains on the dairy side. Well, we can't go on Uford anymore because it's now a it's now a building site, but the likes of say the Derry Patrick or or Athenry from a sheep point of view, the Inzac trial there as well in Athenry. You can kind of see, Cullalton there, Salahead, Shinock Dairy as well, Johnstown Castle, Caft Beef. There's loads of ones there. The grass growth rates are coming in there as well. From yesterday, they're kind of coming in from the different regions. And actually, the PDF of the newsletter is there too, so you can click that and it brings you into the weekly update of the newsletter. So, Teagasc.ie. We'll just quickly go to the paddock one, setting up the paddocks or mapping, just for a second, so we will on that. So there's the wage I uploaded. Okay, first the 5th, it's all there. So again, you have your dashboard. There's numerous stuff here that we can. It's obviously a lot more information. The reports are all there. Again, there's the end of year webinars that we've done, the Grass10 ones. We normally bring a farmer on, maybe a research one. I'm not going to get into annual reports or anything like that today. There's a phenomenal amount of stuff in your reports, especially if you've done a couple of years of measuring. They're well worth going through if you have, and review for different years. But this is what you build when you do 30 walks a year or 40 walks a year for your farm. The information you builds into the annual tonnage report, farm summary report, grass report, and all these different ones. And I suppose you can actually then you have something to view. But that's I suppose down the line. Setting up the paddocks then, so here in farm, and then your paddocks in the mid paddocks here. And so again, I have 12 paddocks set up. So you see I have a total active area of 30 hectares. Now you'll see here, we'll go to the mapping section in a minute, but you'll see how some paddocks I've mapped, okay, and some other ones I haven't, okay. But very, very quickly, I can go add new paddock, and I finished at 12, so I'm going to go 13, and for now I'm just going to put 1.5 hectares on it. I can put a name on it if I wanted to. Walk order, that's going to come in. I'm just going to automatically leave that. I'm going to put in a low, medium, or high level of clover. The mobs, like I suppose mobs is a funny one. It's more used on maybe, say, dry stock, where people might have quite a fragmented farm, and what they do is they manage it all as kind of they might have multiple mobs, but they're managing multiple mobs. There's different stock. They're managing one wage, but they're multiplying multiple mobs. So, so you might have beef heifers on an out block. You might have sucklers on another block with sucklers and calves on another block, and you could actually have sheep on a third block. So it's more for when there's that going on. But in general, I'd like to kind of leave it all in one mob if it can at all. So yeah, so that's sorry, I was clicking out of that by accident. So again, we said paddock 13. Very simply 1.5. Put a name on it if I want. No clover. You can add other stuff in there if you want, but there's no need to, and essentially save. And the next time I go to do a grass wage, the paddock 13 will be available on it. I don't have to manually enter them at all. I can use the farm mapping function. Okay, so this is a very handy. This is a very handy tool. So it'll start pretty much with probably just. So this is just, I'm zoomed in on the farm here. It's actually, yeah, so it's Grange. So I can go edit map. And I go to the pencil button here, zoom in a bit, and I'm going to do this fairly lively. This is for maybe you have in your farm maps. Maybe you've used BPS maps, single farm payment maps to get your size of paddocks. Okay, so I've drawn the shape of the paddock. To link this polygon thing here, we just go back to the hand and click it. Okay, so I can put that as a building, as a lake, as a forest, if I'm, creating exclusions on the farm map. But all I can do is I can put it to a paddock, right? So if I go to paddock, I can go to paddock 13 and make that paddock 13. And so I don't have to put paddock in the paddock section. I can just go and map it. So I can go add new, and I can call this one 14 either. And it already has the area 0.86, and I can hit save. Okay, but I've already that one done to 13 there. So I'm gonna come back up. Yeah, I'd already that one done to 13. But I go to 14. Okay, so that tool is there. Okay, and that can be very, very handy for people who are completely new to it. They haven't a farm map, they haven't got Grass Tech or one of the private people out with grasshoppers to map the farm for them. You can use Pasturebase, okay, and all that stuff can kind of build into a farm map. I can then, as you can see, it's an unfinished map because it's a demonstration account. But I can actually do a farm layout. Off that then. If that was fully finished, if I had everything drawn in right, I can put the names on it. I'll come back out of that there now again for a second. But I can put paddocks. If there was a name on it, I can put that in. I can actually go to this every week. If there was a grass cover on it, if there was fertilizer in it, it'll tell me days last fertilized. Or if I just want to pretty much do a full soil fertility map and print it and put it up on the wall. So if I know some people like visual things, so I could print that, PDF export, and I know then if I had maybe soil fertility in and some of these ones were poor, I could have really pretty much, I can put the ones that are green are okay, the ones that are blue need work. So I can put that in, and I know then, well, geez, I need to tie up some of those ones and maybe put lime on them or something like that. So and I can put the area into them. So there's a lot of stuff there, Zoe. There's huge amounts in there, and I'm conscious I don't want to spend too long on it today, but that's, I suppose, from a basic point of view, in terms of maybe setting the farm up in terms of from a paddock, just getting the paddock pretty much set up. Use the mapping function there. Have your areas. The other one thing I didn't show there, I'll go into it again. Say for instance, now these are very easy paddocks to do in Grange, but you see these ones, maybe it's a round paddock and I drew it rough first. You can toggle, you can bring those white ones in a bit further if you wanted to, and get right into say to the corner of a paddock. So you can kind of draw it roughly first, and then you can kind of pull the white little icons, out towards the ditch. Now, you obviously don't want to be in the ditch because it's not right, but you can just toggle that and then hit save.
Oh, it's a very, very useful tool, and just at least just being able to see where you would set up from the beginning so that you have those before you go to the app, I think was just useful to see. But there's a lot of extra functions there if you want to get into the nitty gritty about it, I suppose.
Yeah, there's a lot there, and it can be it can be probably a little bit overwhelming when you log in there, and that's why I like the simplicity of the app at times, though, in terms of you go into the app, it's kind of like grazing and fertilizer.
Yeah.
I kind of like to look at when you come in here. There's an awful lot of stuff in terms of mapping, and a lot of stuff here. There's reports, all the different reports, and who you're sharing your data with, and all that. And there's a lot going on.
I think we're
here
creatures of habit, though. We're creatures of habit. I'm used to the desktop. I'll stick with the desktop, but I do use the app as well, and it is very useful, very user friendly when you're on the go, actually doing the walk. But there's just so many useful functions that are on the desktop too, that when you really get into managing your grass and have a couple of years of data, it just tells you so much about your farm and helps you make those decisions around underperforming paddocks and things like that, which is really useful.
Yeah. So that's, I suppose, that's a whistle stop tour. I think the one thing I will say, and I know I mentioned it I definitely mentioned Roscommon, I think we mentioned it in Meath as well, like partnering with a buddy in this that is very, very
Mhm.
good at grass measuring is really, from my point of view, is the way that you're going to get better at this. You can do all the, I suppose, the training and looking at maybe some of the YouTube things. But to be honest, Zoe, until if you go walking, even if you walk once a month with someone in from, be it a Dairy Women in Ireland person that's very good at grass, or be it a neighbouring farmer that is doing 40 measurements a year on Pasturebase, and you want to upskill in it, go and do a walk with them, do a full walk with them once a month. What are
Yeah.
they doing? What key decisions are they making on Pasturebase? What cover per livestock unit are they targeting? Are they at a roughly similar stocking rate to you? Or what way are they working the management techniques on the farm? Are they taking out X paddocks because it's too stemmy? Are they taking out, what pre-grazing yield are they targeting? Are you going in, and then you can compare, am I going into too strong a grass? What's their fertilizer regime? The buddy system is really, really good, Zoe, there, in terms of people
Yeah.
who are a little bit more inexperienced at it. Um, and even the function, so some people might be using the app and they'll be flying through the app, and just having someone there that is very, very good at it to explain it to you
Mm.
is good. So, like, I think that's a great way for people who are new to it here. Talk to someone maybe from Dairy Women Ireland that they might be maybe 40 minutes away from you or half an hour away from you or something like that is very, very good at grass. That can be a real good way for you this year to kind of take the bull by the horns and get stuck into it, like.
Yeah. Yeah. Just
Um,
having someone that you can have the conversation with and just ask, well, how did you manage this situation? Or, am I right in making this decision? It's great to have somebody else just to bounce that off of, I think, and even just see how they do it.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's
And again,
really, really
look
good
at
suggestion.
Yeah, no, and again, look, I suppose if I can be of any help to anyone as well, I know the phone does be hopping at times, but if people want to throw on a wedge at times, maybe see what it's like my
Mm.
number is there, and like if I can be of help, I might respond immediately, but I
Thank
will
you.
get back to you. I'll get back to someone like eventually, like, but it's just
Mm.
they might just need a bit of reassurance on what's going on. But I can come back to it. It's getting into the routine of walking that farm weekly. Entering in. It's not going to be perfect. It's not going to be perfect. You could be a year going on it, and you still could be getting maybe the odd cover wrong and stuff like that. But it's the process that you
Yeah.
get into.
I think what you mentioned even on that with the covers being right or wrong, when we were at the Meath event, you were talking about obviously, having your 4 different bands. And at least if you're within the right band, it's a really good starting point to be at and helping to
Yeah.
train your eye as to what covers actually look like.
hmm And actually, John Douglas did a quick video on bands there. It's up on YouTube in terms of the 4 different bands there. It's somewhere uh, buried in YouTube, but it's
Yeah,
it's
but there's
there in
loads of
terms of
resources there, endless resources
tons.
and different webinars that you probably get lost in. I think the
Yeah,
real thing is to get out here and actually get walking and get looking at actual grass and then build your knowledge as a part of that because it can be very overwhelming if you sit down for even the week of Pasturebase updates and kind of go through those. There's a lot to digest when you haven't done it
yeah,
before. So don't put the cart before the horse, I suppose.
completely, like, and it's the walk, and that's the main thing, like.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Okay, well, look, if
um,
there's no other questions, we might finish up there in the next couple of minutes. But if there is any questions, please feel free to ask, or just very kind of you to kind of offer that kind of support there. If anyone did have anything afterwards, I think your details are available. So thank you very much for that, and thank you for your time this morning and for your time at the other events that we've had. We really, really appreciate it. And Deirdre, thank you to you for keeping everything going there in the background, keeping our technology on track. Really appreciate that, and thanks to everyone for joining this morning. This session has been recorded as well, so it'll be shared to your emails as you're all members. So you'll get the recording, which you can look back on if there's a particular point that you wanted to refresh on or see how it was done again. You will have access to that. And just then to kind of leave maybe with our next event is coming up on the 5th of June. You'll get an email shortly with the details for that, but it's a research tour that I'm hosting in UCD Lyons Farm, which is our research farm linked to the university. And the idea for the tour is to give you an insight into some of the ongoing research that's happening at Lyons, We have a dairy herd there that we've been running for the last 8 years, looking at a sustainable pasture-based system. And we also have what we call our long-term grazing platform, which is a platform that we operate a dairy calf to beef system on. And we're looking at different sward types. So we have perennial ryegrass swards, white clover swards, and then a multi-species sward. So it's a day just to open up the research scene to our members, to show them what's going on, what we're doing in UCD. Lots of collaboration across different projects as well with the likes of Teagasc too. So it's just an opportunity to see some of that research and what's happening. We focus so much, I suppose, on the challenges that we're facing around sustainability, but there is so much research going on to help us navigate those challenges going forward. So you will get further details on that. It's the Wednesday, the 5th of June at 10:30 to 1:30, and there will be refreshments and lunch at that as well. So look, at that, I might draw us to a close. Joseph, again, thank you very, very much for your time. Thanks to all of you for your time this morning. And there's no questions in the question box, which is a great sign of a great session. So look, thank you all very much, everybody. I hope you have a lovely day.
Talk to you later.